It takes a lot of courage and stupidity to even attempt to con people into thinking you're poor.
You're begging for money.
What do you want?
But when has that ever stopped anyone? Besides, everybody knows that karma is a real B word and it'll come back to bite you. And we have the proof.
Get away from me. No.
From an amputee with 2 legs to a pregnant homeless woman with a Mercedes-Benz, here are the 15 fake beggars that were revealed. Number 15. The hidden legs. Some people have no shame and are willing to take advantage of people's kindness in any way they see fit. This scammer came up with a pretty ingenious way to ensure he was getting some money by removing his legs. Hiding his legs. Easy mistake. In northwest China, this video shows a man without legs begging for the kindness of others. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't quite forgettable enough to get away with the scheme and was quickly recognized by a man that saw him get off the bus that morning. After quietly telling the scammer off, the guy decided to take more forceful action. After feeling around the scammer's legs, always a risky move, viewers, he works to rip the guy's trousers off in front of the crowd, revealing that his legs were crossed behind him and hidden in his pants. Totally committed to the bit, the guy just slowly rolled away on his skateboard. A better escape than running. You have to give the scammer props for his originality and complete confidence that this guy was going to just give up and walk away. But more to the point, I think we can all agree that wheeling away was a great way to end this clip. Before we go on, like this video, smash the subscribe button, and click the notification bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Number 14. Beggar in the Benz. If you're going to cheat and lie your way to getting money from the public, you might want to consider being discreet about it. You want to be forgotten, not remembered. And a beggar driving a Mercedes-Benz is definitely going to be remembered. This woman was heavily pregnant when she was panhandling with a young boy on the streets of San Francisco. And she outraged locals when she was later driven away in a brand new Mercedes-Benz.
They were leaving and I noticed they went into a Mercedes-Benz. And I thought, wow.
Well, as many scammers do, she made the mistake of doing the very same thing one time too many. Thanks to local citizens' efforts, this woman was already notorious all around the city. But when she tried to pull the con again, the news station turned up, and boy did they confront her. The reporter confronted the scammer with a photo of her begging, just as she'd done every weekend. But while the allegedly poor woman denied it was her,
begging on the street?
A facial recognition expert said it definitely was.
What did you think immediately?
Gypsies.
This unnamed beggar is now one of the most notorious scam artists in all of San Diego, even as she and the man in the car attempted to deny that they were in any way crooked, which you know, they totally are. Number 13. Fake disability. Sometimes it takes a pretty great reporter to unravel what is actually a stunning and audacious lie. And that's not just in the West, but everywhere in the world. Take, for instance, the case of this faker. The video shows a disabled man in Karachi, Pakistan, who relies on public kindness to get through his day. Only he's not disabled. While the guy was initially more than happy to show off just how difficult he finds it to walk, the reporter's determination to unravel the lie soon began to annoy and irritate him. With his walking sticks taken away, the guy fakes a few falls to sell the illusion that he is disabled. But even that doesn't work. Eventually, the guy is able to stand and walk all on his own, effectively destroying the future of his own scam. That's some Watergate-style reporting right there. It's always brave when a reporter starts picking apart the lie of a scammer, since there's always a slight chance that the lie could actually be real. But in this case, we're just looking at a young guy who found a way to make a quick buck. So, good going, reporter. Number 12. The PhD beggar. If you were to base your worldview entirely on this story, you'd assume that having 2 PhDs will leave you penniless, without work, and on the streets. Tell that to the world's many dual doctorate scientists, doctors, and I want to say philosophers. In 2012, a retired Indian schoolteacher had his scam brought to an end after a long period of misleading behavior. Dinesh Dwivedi had a pension of around 35,000 rupees per month. That's around $462 on top of his work salary. Yet he was still out on the streets of Jaipur every day, begging for money. So why was he doing it? The real story is actually kind of sad. The teacher's money had begun to dry up after he retired, with his son beating him and stealing the cash for drugs, leaving Dwivedi in an awkward position. With no work to rely on, he was forced to fake an injury and seek solace on the streets. But when the media turned up and exposed the truth, his fellow citizens moved him into a care home to be looked after properly. This is not the story of a scammer or a con artist, but a tragic tale of a man who had no other choice but to beg others for help. Thankfully, he eventually got the help he needed and was quickly placed into a safer location. Number 11. Kentucky Fried Scam. Scams and cons can happen everywhere in the world at any time.
Did you intentionally injure your dog so that you could raise money from a GoFundMe site?
Which makes them incredibly difficult to spot. In fact, some scams can only be detected and unraveled by those that know the scammer best, their own family. In 2013, the family of a Kentucky man went public with their very reasonable frustrations. Their relative, a 30-year-old man named Gary Thompson, had become notorious across Lexington. The reason? He was pretending to have a mental disability to take money from passing pedestrians. Apparently, Thompson's history with fraud and lies goes all the way back to his teenage years. So his family had a lifetime up close with a man they describe as a master manipulator. Thanks to the family's intervention, Thompson's scam was exposed on a national news show.
Now, Gary's uncle expects him to have more run-ins with police until he gets some medical attention.
Ending with the scammer's own admission that he's faking a mental disability to get a little more money from people.
Handicapped, I'll just not act retarded anymore and get the money and just I'll be normal.
Gary Thompson not only had his scam exposed on television, but also had it exposed by his own family. While we may not know what happened next, it's hard to imagine Thompson was making as much money as he did once. And that, my friends, is karma. Number 10. Fake Indian beggar. While the West generally tends to frown on it, begging is big business in India. In fact, many beggars can make the equivalent to around $500 a month if they're both convincing and determined. So it's pretty obvious why so many people decide to fake a disability, right? In the case of this fake beggar, he's kind of got the whole thing nailed. Not content to just stick to one place and get up and down days, he prefers to move all across India to make as much as he can. That's how he's been able to make enough money to travel to foreign countries every month, sometimes twice. And, if local media is to be believed, he apparently spends millions on the marriages of his sisters. And nobody knew about that until a local news report exposed him as a fraud, taking advantage of local kindness to fund his own personal enjoyment. How fortunate! Of course, being exposed as a fraud doesn't mean you have to stop. And this guy naturally decided to keep going. After all, if people are going to keep giving you money for being a liar, why stop? I call it the politician strategy of life. Number 9. Beggar in the big house. Alright, nobody's going to do extensive background checks on homeless people with signs. But if we did, that would quickly shut down people like this faker, who is apparently none of the things his poster claimed. Where's the sign police when you need them? This YouTuber and promising private investigator received a tip-off by an avid viewer about a man that could often be found on the street, holding a sign that said he was homeless and asking for money. But, of course, when the panhandling was done, the YouTuber made what would have been a shocking discovery if we hadn't already spoiled it with the title of this very video. Yes, the allegedly homeless man actually did have a home, and a big house at that, and a car to get there. But when the YouTuber knocked on his door, the imposter claimed to have no idea what this camera crew was talking about.
No way, I don't think it was me, man.
He would never lie like this. Well, video evidence shows that the homeless guy was wearing the exact same clothes, which obviously undermined the argument that he stole from Shaggy's 2000 masterpiece. It wasn't me. Actually, it was him, and now the world knows. Well, the world knows he has a blurry face. Number 8. The Manipulator. Any aspiring con artists know that the best targets are the wealthy targets, and where better to get rich, clueless people than New York City's Fifth Avenue, home to all manner of extortionary expensive stores selling questionably made fads. This master manipulator posed as a sad woman on crutches who would shake her cups for donations from the passing tourists and wealthy residents, and it actually worked. The woman's cup would fill up pretty rapidly, earning on average 50 donations an hour. But when someone spotted her quietly emptying the container into her purse to make it look empty, alarms began to ring. A squad of undercover journalists quietly tracked her journey, catching a bus to Queens and watching as she climbed into a minivan. When she climbed out, they were stunned. The woman had abandoned her workwear, crutches, and was walking perfectly fine. Over the next few days, they watched in awe as she enjoyed a wonderful few days with her friends before heading back to work as a sad old woman.
The jig is up. Why don't you just walk normally like you did this morning?
Like any good con artist, the woman stayed in character and didn't pay any attention to the journalists that confronted her. For all we know, she's still out there, conning rich people out of their pennies. Number 7. Bangladesh Beggar. There's an unspoken rule of daily life that says you should be kind, considerate, and thoughtful when it comes to other people's beliefs. But there's also apparently an unspoken rule of scam culture that says, forget about that. Make your money. Case in point, this guy. This guy decided to set himself up outside of a Bangladesh mosque and pose as a disabled man in need of some kindness. Of course, there were some who offered their kindness and generosity to him, and at their own cost. But most of the local residents saw right through this ruse and began picking apart his lie until he eventually gave up, standing and taking his act elsewhere. Local Muslims were furious at the man's effort to cheat them out of their kindness and goodwill, and the man learned a valuable lesson. Don't pretend to be disabled for cash. It will not end well for you. Stories like this are familiar throughout India, especially in more impoverished regions. Those who are financially struggling will do anything they feel worthwhile to climb the financial ladder, even if that means taking advantage of others' religious beliefs. Number 6. The professional panhandler. Those two words sound kind of crazy side by side, right? But apparently, some people do actually consider this to be a real job. And in the case of Megan, she was very good at it. Until the big TV incident, of course.
I'm from Seattle. I came down here to live with my boyfriend and
For years, young Megan was able to make some good money by convincing people that she was homeless. She'd sit on the street and tell her story to anybody that would listen, usually earning some cash in the process. But then, one day, her fake life came crashing down. A particularly enthusiastic television crew came into town and began following the allegedly homeless girl, quickly discovering that she had a beautiful house. But not only that, she was an avid shopper. And it gets crazier. The television expose interviewed members of the girl's family, revealing that her mother was aware of her daughter's hobby the whole time. Nobody saw that one coming. With just one unwanted television intervention, this young woman found her life completely changed. All that free money, earned by lies, and it was all for nothing. Well, not nothing. She got some beautiful clothes out of it. Number 5. The Oklahoma Widow. Of all the homeless panhandling scams, this one's probably the smartest. After all, who could find it in themselves to turn down a homeless 78-year-old widow in desperate need of some cash, right? Right! This woman spent most of her panhandling time standing near the entrance to Oklahoma's Quail Springs Mall, holding a sign claiming that she was a 78-year-old widow in need of some money. It goes without saying that a lot of decent people went out of their way to help this woman financially. But, of course, only around 20% of all panhandlers in the United States are actually homeless. And this woman is not in that figure. Daniel Alila spotted this woman counting her money in a 2014 car.
You asking for money in the middle of the street And you drive a 2013 car?
Parked in a gas station parking lot and decided to take action. Grabbing his phone, Alila made his thoughts very clear to the unsuspecting woman, although it's notable that she did not return or give away the money. While most panhandling scams tend to elect their fair share of skeptics, few people ever seem to question them when they involve children or the elderly. But, clearly, you should always be cautious. Number 4. Kidney complications. It's one thing to lie and claim you're homeless or disabled or whatever, but it's quite another to go to the extreme length of faking medical equipment. But, as we've seen time and time again, some people have no shame. Paulgi Chiramawangi spent much of his time in Kenya's Thika town, pretending to suffer from a brutal kidney complication, even though he had no such thing. But he was so determined to make some money from his alleged illness that he would go to extreme lengths, including fixing a fake catheter to his abdomen. Crazy, right? It's incredible what some people will do for money. I'm pretty sure this guy would genuinely have given up his real kidney for some cash. However, while this guy was willing to go the extra mile in search of a quick buck, karma caught up with him. Kenyan police eventually made the big move to apprehend Mwangi and take him off the streets, making all that money completely worthless.
Even us, we've been thinking that he's sick, but actually he's not sick.
But at least he still had his kidney, right? It feels crazy that we even have to say this, but please don't attach catheters to your body in the hope that someone will give you some money. It's doubtful. Also, you'll probably be arrested. That's illegal in some places. Number 3. Organized fundraising. Panhandling always seems like a poorly thought out idea, which is why these highly organized Chinese panhandlers are actually kind of impressive in their operation. Unfortunately, they're also criminals, so what a waste. At the height of their operation, these Chinese con artists could be found in central Melbourne and were recognizable by their sign of choice. The sign reads, "Help," in big, bold letters, with a little paragraph beneath. "Due to my heart disease and urine disease, a variety of diseases, and dirty hair, I can't take of myself."
I actually felt physically sick when I saw what was taking place across the city.
Next to the sign is a full bowl of change. But don't be fooled. These guys aren't making chump change. These panhandlers make huge profit every single day. Or they did. This well-planned Chinese operation came to a swift end when an ordinary citizen noticed one of the homeless folk passing his patchwork jacket to a well-dressed woman before heading home. Even the clothes are fake. I don't think we need to tell you that these scammers have been pretty much run out of the city. And there's swanky patchwork jackets with them. We're just sad that this kind of organizational genius was wasted on criminals. Number 2. The Nigerian Raid. The Nigerian Raid. Fake beggars are like beers. It's never just one. In the case of these scam artists, they work like any other kind of criminal organization, as a group-led syndicate. A hydra, if you will. But if the hydra was willing to lie to you, instead of just spawning extra heads. In 2019, Nigerian police pulled off an incredible raid that saw the arrest of several fake beggars who were working as part of an illegal syndicate that called itself the Rescue Helpers People Foundation Incorporation. That's 100% true. I guess we know why they weren't writers or business people. At the time of their arrest, they were using a young girl as bait to draw in potential targets, pretending that she had a serious stomach problem and needed some cash to fund the operation. But if that kind of emotional manipulation is enough to make you angry, see how you feel about this.
This bandage and solo tape or whatever you see?
The mother of one of those arrested told local journalists that she joined the syndicate after her husband's death, and detailed that she was paid 1,500 naira per day. That's about $3.85. To us, that's probably nothing. But to her, it was clearly enough to warrant the risk. Number 1. The Disorderly Woman. I don't even know where to start on this one. Here we have a story that begins with simple panhandling and ends with police charges that mention Gatorade. I mean, we've come a long way from man hides legs, haven't we? Micah Le Dominguez's fall from crime is actually kind of a hilarious one, in that the whole thing could have been avoided had she not lost her temper. But let's backtrack for a second. Micah Le Dominguez was, of course, a panhandler that pretended to be homeless.
Stop stealing people's money. Stop begging for money. You own a car. You're not homeless. Some people are really homeless. Some people are really homeless and need help.
So she could capitalize on the generosity of the good people of Richmond, Virginia. Those were the good old days for Micah, but they weren't going to last forever. And they definitely didn't. An altercation between Micah and another woman led to our faker throwing bottles of Gatorade at the woman's car, resulting in the police being called and her arrest. Days later, footage emerged of Dominguez panhandling on the street, despite police having records of her purchasing a new car. Not a great look. Like pretty much any character in a Coen Brothers movie, Dominguez's unfortunate fall from legitimate grace was entirely of her own making. Had she not tossed several bottles of Gatorade at the woman's car, she could still be fake homeless. What a loss. Which of these fakers were you most shocked by? Let us know in the comments. Also, check out our other cool stuff showing up on screen right now. See you next time.